Hello and welcome. We're talking tonight about a sensitive topic. We're talking about the big topic of bullying. I have been reading about this topic for a long time. I've been thinking about it a long, long time. I had a daughter who was bullied some in high school, and it's always been something that I think hard about because I think it's not fair when people are bullied, whether they're big or little, whatever they're bullied about, it's not fair. So we're going to learn a lot more about it tonight. I'm talking with Julie Hertzog, first of all, who is the director of the National Bullying Prevention Center out of the PACER'S Center. And we'll have her explain in just a moment more about the National Prevention Center and the PACER'S Center, two wonderful resources. Our second guest is Alec Fisher, and Alec is going to talk about his work as a teen advocating against bullying. As someone who's been bullied, he's going to tell us some about his story and about a documentary he's making about bullying. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Well, Julie, let's start with you.
Sure.
First of all, the PACER'S Center, we think about disabilities when we think about PACER, but tell us kind of the broad range of things that the PACER'S Center focuses on.
Sure, absolutely. Well, PACER is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it was an organization that was founded in 1978. So when students with disabilities were first being mainstreamed into the classroom, parents and schools needed a resource to help them understand what their rights were when they had a child with a disability in an education setting. And at PACER, when we think about disability, it could be a disability such as my son, he has Down syndrome. It could be a child in a wheelchair, but it can also be things like ADHD or ADD or emotional behavioral disorders or learning disabilities. So we, address all those disabilities. And we help parents and families and educators and students understand what their rights are. And we do that through people calling and emailing us. We also have extensive websites, and we offer workshops. And we work not only locally, but also nationally as well in the area of special education.
And in terms of national things, they recently got a wonderful award. I was so excited to hear about this from the FBI, the Community Leadership Award. And Mr. Mueller presented it to you and to the executive director of PACER. Tell us about the award and kind of how you think PACER got this award.
Well, we had been contacted by, they're called field offices, one of the FBI field offices in New York, about the work that we were doing in the area of bullying prevention. And they, had hooked us up with the Minneapolis field office and some other ones, and we were sharing information back and forth. And the award that we received is the Community Leadership Award. And what's so great about that is that the FBI is recognizing that through preventative work, such as bullying prevention, that it's actually creating a better future out there. So they're looking at, the work we're doing is long-term preventative. And it was such an honor to receive that national recognition.
And you went out to Washington to get it. How exciting, in March, just recently.
And we had a wonderful visit to the FBI, and there were 100 other recipients of the award as well through the different field offices through the FBI. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to bring you in, and then we'll come back to Julie and have her talk more about the National Bullying Prevention Center. But were you abused and bullied as a middle school child, am I right?
Yes, I was actually harassed and bullied by other students throughout middle school and my sophomore year at high school. And so I've really taken that experience and those experiences and helped it fuel my motivation to promote change in public schools in Minnesota.
And now you are a senior in Edina.
I am.
At Edina High School. And when you say middle school, was it from the beginning in middle school, 7th, 8th, and 9th?
Middle school starts at Edina in 6th grade.
It does?
It does. It's 6th through 9th, and then the high school is 10th through 12th.
Oh, okay.
And so it started in about the beginning of 6th grade, and it got really bad in 7th and 8th grade, and then it got better in 9th and 10th grade. I think as kids got older and matured more and were able to develop, you know, I guess their, what they considered to be a humane way to treat people. And so it was definitely worse in middle school. Do you want me to?
Well, let me just ask, do you think some of why it got better was the way you handled it, as well as the way your classmates, as you said, matured perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
But do you think some of it was just your comfort with yourself?
I definitely think it was a combination of both. Coming into 10th grade, you have 2 middle schools that come together, and so there's a lot more kids. You know, if you had to, I was able to keep a lot of my friends that I had throughout middle school, but you meet so many new people that it was easy to kind of separate myself from the people who had been bullying me throughout middle school. I definitely went to my teachers for help. My parents knew about it, but I don't think that either of them knew the extent to it, because I'm the kid that is always smiling. If somebody says something or seems like they're in a bad mood, I'm always the one to come and comfort them. So I don't think a lot of people besides my close friends knew what was going on because of that, because I was very easily
Kept
able
some
to
of
hide
it
it.
hidden.
Exactly.
And I bet most kids who are bullied do keep some of it hidden. That seems like it would be a natural thing. Well, I want to come back and hear more about your story, but first tell us a bit about the National Bullying Prevention Center, Julie, of which you are the director.
Sure. Well, and again, working in the field of disability, we noted, and I've been with PACER Center for 12 years, and about 10 years ago, we started noticing that we were receiving more and more contact from parents who had students or children with disabilities about bullying-related issues. And as a personal note too, my son, who was born with Down syndrome, was about 5 at that time, and I started thinking about him going into kindergarten. And he's nonverbal, he's very small, had a pacemaker, has a feeding tube, and just some really obvious differences. And I started thinking about what his experience was going to look like in school. And, you know, PACER's great about taking action when we see that there's an issue in the community. And so 10 years ago, we started talking and said, we need to do something about this. And we had also received just this horrific letter from a father who said that there was a group of boys and they were taking his son's head and beating it into a locker every day, every single day, and that there wasn't any action being taken. And we said, you know, it's time to take a stand here. And so we started very grassroots, and we looked at it, and you know, that's why we brought Alex into the combination here. One of our philosophies is that by educating students themselves, that we feel that they can make a great, you know, have a huge impact in this issue. It's a community issue, and we look at community, we look at parents and educators, but one of our unique emphasis is on you know, inviting students into the mix and having them participate, and you know, and I think their voice is so important in bullying prevention.
We all have to listen to each other, don't we?
Yeah.
I've been impressed and intrigued with how much attention bullying is getting just in the last few months. We're taping on April 16th. I'm not sure if things are just coming to a head in terms of awareness. This movie, the documentary Bully, is out. That's causing some discussion. But it's good, isn't it, to have this kind of attention coming? How were you bullied? And tell us more about your story, because just meeting you, how could anybody bully you, you know? But tell us about how it happened and what kids did and how you responded.
Well, in 6th grade it started. I've always been very involved with choir and theater, and so I had a group of kids kind of in the first few months of school who picked up on that, and they were, they really focused on spreading rumors about me, that, you know, I was gay, and that, you know, because of that I wasn't capable of certain things. And so I was taunted for that in 6th and 7th and 8th grade. And, you know, there were instances where, like at the homecoming football game, for example, I was trying to go up and sit with my friends at the stadium, and I was barred access from getting up because I didn't belong in a sports stadium because of their rumors that they spread. That was one thing that happened. Then in 7th and 8th grade, it got worse and worse, and I was introduced, when new kids would come to the school, I was introduced as the faggot, which was, I was not aware of it until the end of 7th grade, so that was hard to hear. Especially, kids being that young, you'd think, why, how would they be capable of doing something like that? And I mean, my friends were, I lost almost all of my guy friends. I had quite a few friends, but they were almost all girls, which then only fueled the rumors more because my guy friends didn't want to have anything to do with me in case it was true. Which, at that age,
Kids
it's
are
easy
so
to exactly
nervous about their identity one way or another.
Exactly. And so going into 8th grade, it was more of being scared to go down certain areas, or I despised gym class, which is a required subject in most high schools and middle schools, if not all. And so that was one thing I would always dread, going to gym, because I knew I'd be taunted in the locker room and things like that. And so that was very hard during middle school. And I remember the end of 8th grade, we could run for student council for 9th grade and then up until high school. And so you would make campaign posters and hang them around the school. And I spent hours making my posters. I had a really good design that I thought was really exciting and would get people's attention. And I remember hanging them up and coming to school the next week and having faggot written on all of them. And I had...
Did that just, I mean, as a parent, it would break my heart that you went through that. As a young person, did you just feel kind of deflated? Did you feel angry? How did you react at first?
I was more hurt than I think angry. I would come home crying almost every day. My parents had a hard time with that. Teachers that were aware of it were very, it was hard for me because I didn't want to share the names of any people that I thought were doing it, because it wasn't, especially with the poster incident, there's not a specific person I could say they did that. I had an idea of who it was, but it was one of those things where if I went to a teacher about that, the teachers were always there and the administration was always there for me, which I was lucky to have at Edina. They have some very good programs set up for that, but they, the students, you're always scared of, okay, well, who else would tell? And, if you tell, they're going to come to you because they know that you will.
Will it get worse?
Exactly.
I'm sure that's on your mind, right? Or was on your mind.
And so 9th grade and 10th grade, it was still there. And, I'm sure it's still there now, but 9th and 10th grade especially, I basically, 8th grade, I hit a very low point in my life. I had some friends who, we all were struggling with bullying-related incidents. And, I had some self-destructive habits and things I'm not proud of doing at all. And, there was a time where I considered taking my life. It got so bad.
Were you doing the cutting?
I tried it, but it was something that my friends did it and it relieved them, and I tried it and it didn't relieve my pain. So I did not fall into that. But I did try it because my friends who did it, it seemed that they were feeling better because of it. And so it was one of those things where...
So were those kids, Alec, being bullied also?
My
Kids,
friends were, but the kids who were bullying me, I don't imagine that they were, no.
Okay, but that, I meant your friends that were trying
Yes,
cutting,
they were.
They were also being bullied. Okay.
And a lot of them had, my situation was not as bad as a lot of theirs. A lot of my friends that were doing that were, their parents were going through divorces, and they had, one of my friends lost everything in the housing market crash. And so, she was going through that and, bullying on top of that for them. So they had it a lot
layered
worse. Exactly.
kind of experience.
And so, I am not grateful for that at all. It was definitely one of the darkest times of my life, but I am glad that I was able to overcome it, because it definitely, after coming out of that and realizing, I had a self-realization that, I might feel this way, but how many other kids, like my friends, are feeling even worse than I am, and how, I was always the person that they could come to and talk to. I've always been that kind of friend where I sat with my friend for 9 hours in a car one night until about 3 in the morning, just listening to her about what was going on in her life. I've always been that kind of person. So for me, it really was a realization that, I should use what I've learned through my experiences to help other kids who, didn't have the friends that I had and didn't have, the teachers that I went to.
It's fortunate you had teachers that you could trust, because that does not always happen, does it? You would think that all teachers would be sensitized to this issue, but not true, Julie, right?
Well, and I think Alex, he brings up several good points in sharing his story too, and just listening to it, in that oftentimes kids, students will reach out to a parent or an adult, and one of the things that we try to do at the PACER Center is to educate when someone talks to you about being bullied, what should your response be? Because we know that through generations that kids have gotten the advice, oh, just ignore it and it'll go away, or it's just words, the words won't hurt you. And to really kind of reframe that thought process, that bullying isn't just going to go away, that if kids could stop it on their own, they would have already done that. So when
And
they're
it
coming
often
to us,
escalates, doesn't
yes,
it?
yeah, yep. So if they're approaching as a parent or as a teacher, know that they need your help. They're reaching out for a very
Take it seriously.
Take it very seriously.
Did your parents know to the extent, I guess you're saying, or you said earlier they didn't know to the extent that you were in pain and feeling really miserable?
And I think one of the reasons I was able to hide it so well is, once again, I was always the kid who was smiling all the time. There were days, 6th grade especially, I would come home crying every day, but after that I stopped coming home and crying every day. So my parents, I think, figured that it had gone away. I've always taken enriched courses, and I'm taking a lot of AP courses right now. And I've always been over-involved in a lot of stuff, so I've always had a very busy schedule. So I've always blamed, if I didn't sleep one night because I was worried about coming to school, I could always blame it on, I was very stressed out for a test. I would use all of these excuses that for me were very easy to fall back on because people believed them.
So even you were sort of misleading yourself maybe in terms of the severity.
Well, I think, yes. I also think that it was one of those things where I didn't necessarily want people to know because I was ashamed of it.
Yeah, and there's the pride factor. You don't want them to know how it's getting to you too, right? Well, have they let up? Are you feeling fine now in terms of your role at school?
Yeah, I'm actually, this year, my senior year, I was voted onto homecoming court. We have 1,900 kids at Edina High School, so that was a big
great.
accomplishment. I have been involved in a lot of leadership activities. I'm the head of about 3 major clubs in our high school and main member of about 5 others.
Things have turned around.
Exactly.
We only have 10 minutes left, and we could use about 10 hours here, but a couple quick questions. Why do you think bullies bully? That is a question I think a lot of people are very curious about.
Well, I think we could both answer that one, both Alec and I could take a shot at it. We look at bullying that it's a very dynamic thing that's happening, and it's easy to want to label somebody as a bully, as a target or victim, or as somebody who's watching it. But really, those roles can vacillate at any time. Oftentimes someone who has gotten bullied might bully in response to it.
Or want to,
Or
for
want
sure.
to, for retaliation. Or maybe they see a bullying situation and because they want to be part of the crowd, they sit back and they laugh with it, so even though they're not doing it directly. So those roles are just really nebulous and they're changing all the time. But
And
a lot
they
of bullying is
change
about...
as you get older too. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
guessing
Yep.
that in junior high, the crowd and the peer pressure,
The peer pressure is really
bigger,
strong,
isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and as Alex had referred to too, you know, as you're moving into high school, you're maturing and you're recognizing that your actions have impact on somebody else too, and that you're looking at situations differently. So, bullying has, you know, the statistics do show that bullying escalates in middle school. I mean, that's where it is definitely at its
And
peak.
peaks usually
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
but
and
it is about power and control. You know, wanting to be in control of a situation.
And I definitely
wanted-
think that in terms of, you know, how everyone thinks that bullying gets, I guess, less in high school, I think it does physical bullying and outright, you know, in your face, you know, calling another person to their face bullying. But I feel like middle school, it's more in your face and, you know, right to their face. And in high school, it's more undercover because people have realized it's not acceptable, socially acceptable to call someone a name to their face or to start a fight and beat someone up. So what they do is they utilize, you know, all the major social networking sites, and there's a lot of cyberbullying and more gossip that happens at the high school level, which, you know, in terms of effects on kids, I think it also has, you know, terrible effects for the kids being bullied, but I think that kids feel less responsible for it because it's not face to face.
So it's more subtle, but it can be just as horrible feeling if you're being bullied. With 5 minutes left, do you want to each talk about what people can do who are feeling bullied in terms of action steps? And of course, your documentary is going to address this. Maybe I can have you back when the documentary is done. We can show some of it and talk more about this. But would you each just share a little bit of someone who's watching maybe is saying, I don't know what I can do. What are some action steps?
Sure, and I'm going to focus on if you're a student out there and you're being bullied, I'll try to capture it in 3 ways. Number one, know that you're not alone. I think, you know, so often kids, and again, Alec had done a wonderful job of sharing his story, that sometimes you don't want to talk about it, or maybe you've tried reaching out and you've hit a dead end. You know, you're not alone, and there are people who care. Number 2, know that you have rights. You're a student at school, you have the right to be safe. Almost every state in the nation has a law that looks at bullying prevention, and those laws vary a lot. But as a student, if you're talking to somebody and they're not listening or they're not hearing what's happening to you, ask the question, what can we do to keep me safe at school?
And ask that of the
question.
teachers,
Yes.
of the administrators.
Yeah, because then it opens up a dialogue, and you know, they'll know that you're going to be willing to work together to make that happen too. And number 3, it's never the job of somebody who's being bullied to make it stop. I mean, but you can definitely take steps to make a difference, and I think Alec has explained that really well too. But we call it just developing a plan. You know, if you're getting bullied, what are some concrete things that you can do to change your situation? You know, is it working with a school? Is it telling your parents? You know, what is it that you're going to do?
And do you advise telling your parents in a way that maybe you haven't tried? Because I think sometimes parents don't want to hear it either.
Yeah, you know, a lot of kids will say, my parents are already dealing with enough. I don't want to put this extra responsibility upon them. But find a trusted adult then. Be talking to somebody. Again, you know, you're not alone, and you have the right to be safe. And there are things you can do. You know, and visit PACER websites for great ideas too at pacer.org/bullying. And I think those websites will be shown at the end of the show as well.
In fact, I'll come back to you now, but that segues perfectly. We want to give you the websites because these are great websites, very practical. First is just the PACER's website, pacer.org/bullying, if you want to get just to the bullying part. Then there are 2 specific websites, PACERkidsagainstbullying.org and PACERteensagainstbullying.org. And they all are just full of practical ideas. And Alec, let me ask you the same question. What are some things that kids can do, teens or younger kids even, who feel bullied?
I think one of the most important things that they can do is know that they are not responsible for it, and that it is not their fault, and that they, you know, it is not something they did wrong, and it's not something that they are responsible for. And usually, if they're being targeted, you know, there's not something wrong with them, and there's not something that they need to change. Usually, it's at the fault of the bully, and so I think a lot of kids get this feeling that I'm alone. It's my fault. You know, I'm not good enough. I'm not, you know, I'm not good looking enough, or I'm not this way. You know, I don't act this way. And I think that's very important, that they need to remember that it is not their fault, and they should find help for it.
We only have a minute left, but in terms of reporting it, I know that's a tricky thing for a lot of young people, worrying that they're going to be looked at as a tattler. But you are advising, I think both of you, right, that you do report it.
Silence, you know, is only going to protect the situation and
Protect the bullier,
protect
right?
protect the bullier, and especially for our young kids. We've been telling them for years that telling is tattling, but really what we try to say is that if you're telling someone, you're doing it to protect them, and you're doing it to protect yourself, and it's not tattling, it's telling.
And you will help other people too.
Yep.
It sounds like you've always thought of others, and that's a way to do that, isn't it? Well, we are out of time. I wish we had more time. Thank you both for coming down and telling us about PACER's wonderful programs and your story that is so hopeful. And I'm sure a lot of kids listening are saying, he got through it. Wow, you know, I can do it too. So thanks.
Yeah. We'll
be back again next week, and hopefully we can have them back and do a part 2. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.